Welcome into an emergency edition of the NFL Brekkie Show. I say emergency. Laurie Horesh, we're here Super Bowl week, Eagles, Chiefs, Super Bowl 59. But you'll notice a third guest on the stage, GM of NFL Australia and New Zealand, Charlotte Offord. Seismic news really in the NFL international world today. The NFL is coming to Australia. We're going to ask Charlotte a few questions about this game. But Charlotte, for me, I guess, with the relationship with the league, why was it 2026, I guess 21 years after the NFL first went international, that now is the right time to bring a regular season game to Melbourne?
Yeah, look, we've significantly expanded our global reach. We made a stake in the ground a few years ago to say we really want to expand this game globally. And so you would have seen over the last few years, we've increased the number of games, and that decision got made to increase to 8 games per year from 2025. And so we are really making a conscious effort to grow the game globally. Australia is an important market for us. We opened an office there 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago, and we've been investing in the market to grow it. So now is the time to put that stake in the ground, and an even bigger stake in the ground, and say, hey, let's play a game.
And my immediate follow-up to that is, what was the run-up from, I guess, genesis of the first pitch of, hey, can we do this logistically, to no, this is happening and we're going to circle this date?
Yeah, it was a long time. First of all, it's always, can you do it? Can we achieve this? What is the effect going to be on everything that we do? The second part was, how are we going to take this to market? How is this process going to run? And we ran a very rigorous, very detailed process with many states and cities, and we landed here.
Look, I'm still partially in shock by what has been building throughout. It's been building for some time, but it kicked up steam over the past week, obviously. And when you come to Radio Row this week for Super Bowl in New Orleans, it's going to be a little bit different. There might be, a good 72-hour chunk in the middle of the week. It wasn't going to be so much about the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. Yes, the Philadelphia Eagles still in this contest, but in very many parts back when watching it. But for this one, there's so many logistics that have played into it, and that's always been part of the conversation. Was there the hours, the long flights, the jet lag? Was there a person, was there a moment where that flicked over and with this decided we're going to overcome that? That needs to not be part of the conversation anymore.
Yeah, look, there's a huge consideration. Huge considerations that have to go into any decision that you make for anywhere in the world that we would play. So certainly that comes into it. I think there's still a lot of work for us to do between now, but yeah, there was decisions made to say, if we're going to be global, let's truly be global. And Australia is part of that.
So two words came out of presser today, two big words that caught a lot of people's attention. Week one. I should say three words. Likely week one. As you look at that, obviously the likely is a nice little qualifier there. But it feels like the start of that season and in that September range is likely where this is going to land. Obviously working with the AFL and how their schedule goes, and something that's been noted, and I think it was first brought up by, at least in my brain, by our wonderful Melbourne-based team who's delivered AFL footy as well as AFL, that there is a bye week within the AFL finals, and that tends to provide some breathing. We are looking at that September time period is the most likely landing spot?
We don't know. We honestly don't know yet. And I think, as Peter outlined in the press conference today, it is likely right now in our heads that is the likely place to go, because that seems like the most optimal window right now. But we've got a ton of work to do. We really do. We've got to work through not only opposing teams, logistics, other things. We need to work through, as you said, with the AFL and with other stakeholders, not just the AFL events, other things taking place in Melbourne. When is the right place to stage this? And
Melbourne, I say this as a loving Sydney sider, and so happy with this decision. Melbourne does love to let us know that there are a lot of things going on. It's one of the things we love about our southern friends. All right. Prognostication time, prediction time. Me and Phil naturally, and pretty quickly started looking at potential machinations.
We know who the Rams' home opponents are going to be in the 2026 season. We don't know which one will not be played at SoFi Stadium.
Yes. We're operating in a world where divisional opponents wouldn't be a divisional game coming. A divisional game has gone international before. I believe Mexico was one of the games that went outside of the country did feature a divisional matchup. We're operating now.
Did Jags play a divisional game in London?
Jags played too many games in London to count at this point. My
That's
memory
why
of the
I
Jags.
think it may have been one.
My
of those.
memory of the Jags in London was Des Bryant scoring about 1,000 touchdowns against them in a rainy day of there. Okay, so looking at the potential matchups that we're outside the division, there's 4 teams that are known to be a home game for the Rams that they can take on the road. The LA Chargers, okay, LA and LA makes sense from a travel standpoint. The New York Giants, long trip, there will be direct flights.
Mhm.
The Kansas City Chiefs have some name talent,
Yeah.
some name talent that may attract eyeballs. And then the mighty fighting Dallas Cowboys out of the fine state of Texas. While I let you just think on that for a sec, Phil, what's your early impulse? Where would you lean on that one?
Well, and Maz, there are also 2 opponents that
TBD.
depending on where the Rams fall on the divisional ladder.
Correct.
That I guess the question, Charlotte, would be, what's the timetable for deciding an opponent in a situation like this?
Yeah, we won't know exactly who's going to play until probably the April schedule next year. So year of game.
Yeah.
So we've got a long road, to figure that out. I'll let you guys continue to speculate who you think is going to be there. That's
Good
part
for
of
the
it.
brand.
That's part of this, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it won't come out until next year.
What are the, I guess that's somewhere in the hierarchy of things to sort out between now and September or October 2026. For you, what is the biggest logistical concern or I guess puzzle to solve between now and then?
Do you know what? I don't actually think that anything's a big concern. I honestly don't. I think there's a lot of stuff that needs to be worked through. There's a lot of stuff that might be a little bit more challenging to solve for quickly than others. But it's all doable. We've been playing these games in multiple different continents. It's not new.
Yeah.
It's new for Australia. And yes, it comes with, significantly, or even not really significantly, more travel time, but not really.
Yeah.
There are more direct flights. There are more things going on. It's not hard.
If you've ever tried to go from Philly to Sao Paulo, it's not around the corner.
No.
It's not. It's closer than LA to Melbourne, but by a matter of a couple hours of airtime.
Correct. So it's. I think there is a perception out there that Australia is really far away.
Kind of
it is. Well, it is, but really, when you think about it from an airtime perspective, it's actually not that much further away than a lot of other continents that we have played games in. So, I think, look, there's going to be a few challenges and hurdles along the way, but we've entered this feeling comfortable that we're going to do this.
There's a couple of questions about where this would have gone. Melbourne and Sydney and Perth were the rumoured 3. But I think I want to ask from the hosting team standpoint. We heard really enthusiastically from the Rams that they put their hand up straight away and said, we want to be in on this. That was right from the get-go. Were there any other teams that were close behind in that process, or the Rams really gassed from the outset and they really took that kind of clubhouse lead and didn't let go?
The Rams really took the lead, from at least my knowledge, because they've invested in the market. They've been in the market for longer than I have. They've been doing their global market rights they took 3 or 4 years ago. They've been doing watch parties, investing in activities in the market. They have a stake that they already in the ground already. So it makes sense. Why not jump in and offer up first when you're already invested in that market?
And it is a massive commitment, because I think something that when you look at the reporting that came out and discussions about possible matchups, something that for casual NFL fans or just casual sports fans that are tuning in at this massive moment and this massive news, something to understand is that giving up a home game is a huge deal. Giving up a home game for an NFL team when there's 17 of them now, who knows where that winds up in the future. There's 17 of them now. Those are held on to with such primacy.
But that's the advantage of an imbalanced schedule, is that you have 9 and 8, and Commissioner Goodell suggested that as international commitments grow, that at some point maybe every team has an international game. At some point, as a home team, 16 I think was the number that was bandied about. But if it's 9 and 8, it really, you have eight home games, 8 road games, and 1 neutral site de facto. So you're giving up a home game, but you had an extra one to kind of play with. That was house money.
Yeah, and I think look, we're going to see a lot of discussion about the schedule, and there's questions out there about whether this goes to an 18-game regular season and whether 2 bye weeks come in.
Probably will.
There you go. Phil's getting ready for a breaking news strap. But as we cast our eyes out on this, and there's so much talk about this singular game, and people made an effort on the microphone to say it's more than just a game. We've seen the rise of the NFL Academy. We know what's going on with NFL Flag and the massive expansion that's gone on there into the Olympics and the junior level, teams going to Pro Bowl. And then we've seen it's not just Jordan Mailata. It's not just Daniel Farley. It's not just Laken Buckalai. It's Jonathan Russell, Pat Murtaugh, Adam Gotsis with the Buccaneers. I don't know, he'll be here in town tomorrow. And not punting class that we've had for a long time now. What's your feeling about this game having a long-term impact and taking some of those young athletes? Maybe they are athletes that are talented and considering the NFL Academy and seeing that in person. And it's something that I wrote on piece for ESPN.com.au today. Please go check it out. It's not just in HD, it's in person. The hits aren't coming through your stereo. You're hearing them in person. And you're not waking up at 3 a.m. for it either. What's your feeling the impact that can make on kids making a decision that, hey, I'm going to chase this football thing?
Yeah, I think it makes it real. I think Jordan Mailata for us is a great example of someone that has made it real for so many kids already. You just talked about the fact that we're investing in programs from grassroots all the way up to the NFL, through the IBP Academy and Flag. The pathway exists, and I think kids in the country are now knowing that the pathway is real and exists. So putting a game in market and these young kids being able to go and watch a game in person, it speaks for itself.
And Charlotte, there's a kind of a understandable sense of celebration about many of you and the NFL international colleagues with today's announcement. So say we're 3 days past whenever this game is played in 2026. What for you will define a successful first NFL Australia regular season?
A sellout?
I think that's going to happen.
Well, a sellout, but I think there's a lot of factors. I think, from a colleague perspective, operationally, we want this to be the best atmosphere that we possibly can deliver. We want the fans to go away and be true fans for life. We want to see that affect our broadcast, our fan numbers. We want to see the impact of putting a game in market carry through to continued fandom for the game. And that could be in participation, that could be in watching, it could be in so many different ways, but we want to see this game be a catalyst for fandom going forward.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, it's a multi-game agreement. What do we know about what multi means and what the kind of cadence of that means beyond 2026?
Yes, so the deal is a 2+1. And then obviously we'll go through the motion on that, and if we want to expand across, we can. But as you've heard and seen from other markets we've played in, when we go into market, and we're committed and we want to stay. So, it's about the games and making sure that there's continued games being played, but it's also about working with, Visit Victoria in this instance to just grow the game, put more touch points in market for fans to enjoy.
Away from the very serious side of things and machinations of schedules and government relations and working with other codes, throughout this process, was there a question? What was the weirdest question that was asked about this from, whether it was the Rams or someone in the NFL ops team that really just took you back? Someone who clearly hadn't maybe done travel down to this part of the world that might have struck you as just something you've gone, I really hadn't thought of that. That's, do they have this type of food? How do we adjust our clocks? Do the toilets really spin the other way? Like the Simpsons told us so many years ago. Was there
people believe that still?
Well, I check when I come here, it's something that most Australians check with Australians of a certain age. That watch the Simpsons growing up, but as we get a Disney Plus plug in there. But were there any kind of curveball questions that really took you back, or any ones that made you laugh and go, no, don't worry, that's not something we really need to tackle?
Do you know what?
Kangaroo infestation?
Yeah.
It's not so much things that they don't know. It's honestly, it comes down to the Australian slang every time. But, there's just words that Australians say and they say on social and they're out there.
I'm still figuring it out.
And it's like no one really understands what those are. So it's a great education process. We love having that chat with colleagues internally around what certain things mean. I think we'll continue to have it.
So 2+1, which is incredibly exciting. Melbourne buoying their status, their self-proclaimed status, but their status is the sporting capital of the country. So they like to say the world at times as well. When when you think about the crowds, because we've seen the NFL go to different parts of the continent. Europe, we've seen singing, football, like European football, like singing in the middle of the game. What type of particular energy from an Australian crowd are you thinking that we might be able to bring, or that might stand out a little different from perhaps your average NFL crowd that we have seen when these sports do go to a different continent in a different area, and hopefully that's not just a whole lot of sharp nasal accents screaming from the crowd, which is part and parcel of going and watching a bit of footy in Australia.
I expect it to be very similar to what went down in Munich. Fans singing Sweet Caroline, not leaving the stadium, having a great time, really embracing it. I expect to see all 32 teams represented. We often see that in international games, and I expect fans are going to rock up with whatever team they support and whatever team they love. They'll probably pick a team for the day, but they'll also be like wearing the gear. I expect hopefully close to, if not 100,000 people being able to really enjoy themselves.
And you mentioned the Munich game. Is there anything that you've been able to take away from? We're going to have 8 international games in 2025. From the week build-up, whether it's in London or Munich, that you automatically say, we would love it if we implemented that in the game week in Australia to kind of build the appetite in and around the MCG?
Absolutely. So I'm lucky enough that I worked out of the UK office for 10 years. So it was very much part of the process we went through in implementing games early back then. So I've seen the evolution of all the things that we've done in various markets, even coming to Super Bowls and seeing some of the assets that we put out here, every Super Bowl. I'm out there keeping my eye on things going, what are the things that we can build locally in the market that are going to just set us apart, that are going to make this game exceptional. And so we'll continue to do that. But yeah, I've got some ideas.
Pending when this when this game comes down in the schedule, say it was week 1 in a hypothetical world, and we're not holding you to anything on that. But how early do you think we'd see teams, when you spoke with teams like the Rams, or when the NFL's worked with these franchises, and the Rams in particular in this case, how early do you think we might see them come out and try and tackle, the jet lag? And because whilst the flight to South America is still long, obviously time zone's another part of it. There's air time and then there's time zone. How early might we be getting some some fun guests to show about town?
I would suspect, and again, this is not
pending when it is.
Exactly. I would suspect a longer stay. I would just naturally based on the distance, based on what you said around climatizing. So that would be what I would expect. I don't know at this stage, and I think that needs to be worked through. But certainly, you would expect the difference between other markets where they can come in and leave. I would expect this is a little bit longer than that.
I immediately think of crossing sport for a second, but South Africa's cricket still who came down to fight in the championship fight here, and seemingly was here for multiple weeks afterwards. I think he enjoyed the climate in Australia so much that he just hung about and checked out the sites and maybe didn't make the first flight back. So hopefully, maybe there's a bye week on the other side of that.
He's fighting this weekend in Sydney. He might stick around and watch Monday morning the Super Bowl on ESPN.
Well, like we said, and like we're saying, this is a multi-year commitment. This is a long-term commitment. When people come to market, they come to stay, so we want to give them reason to keep coming back. But look, it is truly historic. Was there? Speaking to the, I guess more on the NFL side of things, how realistically, how far back did this Australia really come to the radar? There's been talk about this. We know that Phil's beloved Broncos were here in 1999, I want to say, just around the turn of the millennium.
They won the Super Bowl.
For a pre-season. It wasn't a regular season. But in your experience, and as you said, before you were here, you were over in the NFL UK offices, so you've been part of the apparatus for a while. When did the Australia thing, not just with the Rams, go from being truly fanciful to, we're going to put this on the list? Because we notice, we see press, whether it's someone like Peter O'Reilly, or it's someone like Roger Goodell appear on a podcast and they listed a couple of nations. They're like, hey, Australia was on that list that he just mentioned. So when did it come into focus?
Yeah, so we track data of our fan base, and we have a global study. We track it around the world. I won't bore you with the details of that, but
no, but I might have a follow-up.
It started in 2000. We started tracking data for the market, and what we learned between 2000 and 2022 was this massive surge in fandom for the Australian market. So it was enough of a surge in fandom that it made the league kind of look at the data and say, hey, there is something happening here. These fans, we're not really doing much in the market outside of having fantastic media partners. What is happening? This fandom is growing, and so that was when obviously the job came up. We decided to open an office down there in 2022, and then really from there, at that time, games certainly went on the radar. They went on the radar, and I'd say in the last year to year and a half, like there has been a consideration for sure that we're seeing the fan base grow. We grew by just under 1 million new fans in the last 12 months. That's speaking for itself. It makes you stand up and say, should we be playing a game now?
That's to hear that it can happen that quickly. Because you think of things like this as has been a decade something, that the switch can flick that quickly, and that surges can happen, and accessibility to the game. Because we know, like, I compare how much football I can watch these days on ESPN compared to growing up. You're lucky if you've got a live game on TV at any point. So the accessibility is there. We've seen a massive increase in social media coverage for football as well. So we're talking about those younger demographics who, sorry, mum and dad, they're not always posted on other platforms. They might be aging out of Instagram at this point. Who knows? I can't keep up aging myself nicely, but that has changed so much. And it's fascinating to hear how quickly that can change. On that data point, though, with the data that you have on fans, have you noticed any fan bases that have been particularly upset in the data that you get? Do you get that level of emotional reaction? Is it the Cowboys fans? Is it people like me raging out? Is that the data that you get that level of insight?
I do. So favourite team certainly comes up as part of the study. To give you some insights, the Cowboys is still the #1 team in Australia.
They might not be America's team for much longer, but they're still Australia's team, people.
But what we have seen is some really significant shifts in that list over the last couple of years. So the Rams, since investing in the market, have gone from 14th to 10th. The Eagles in the last few months have risen, and I think we're due to get our next round of data over the next few months. And then the Chiefs, obviously with their winning streak, went from 16th to 7th. Which is a huge uplift. So,
and those Denver Broncos, are they on the radar?
Check back in a couple of years. Once the Bo show.
Oh, okay.
If we're talking things really upticked in 2021, 2022, those weren't the banners.
No.
My beloved Broncos.
I don't know. Cowboys have had bad innings, but it's nice to know that our brand is still so strong. And hey, look, on the teams, throw it out there again. They're on the list of contenders. Are they going to be the winner of this ticket to Australia and playing a regular game down here against them? I don't know. But it's nice to know that they're on a contender list of some sort, even if it's not a Super Bowl contender.
Well, Charlotte, thank you so much for the time and the insight, and I mean, really just being such a great partner to us here, genuinely. It's been terrific to see the game grow. You hear my accent. I'm from America, and it's been amazing just to see the appetite for the sport grow in Australia. I just selfishly, I hope it continues to, but it sounds like it's well on its way. So congratulations. I just got to say, this logo looks so damn good.
Right.
It's got to feel good to see on the football. So, Charlotte, thank you so much again for joining us here on the Brecky Show on No Notice, this emergency edition with the big news of the day.
Thank you so much for having me. Exciting.